Marcus Aurelius believed power corrupts, but he also believed it doesn't have to. He wrote that our soul takes on the color of our thoughts. He was an emperor. He had absolute power, and he didn't lose his inner light. He was surrounded by war, by plague, and he maintained a profound calm. How? His private journal shows a system. A three-part system for mastering reality. It starts with perception, then it moves to action, and it's anchored by will. This is an ancient framework. But it's a timeless answer for anyone carrying weight, for anyone with responsibility today. What does true strength look like when the world demands everything from you? The Antonine Plague moved through his empire. Hundreds of thousands died. A leader's first instinct could be panic or despair. Marcus Aurelius asked a different question. What does an emperor need to control first? His answer wasn't the legions, it wasn't the treasury, it wasn't the senate, it was his own perception. Before any decision, before any action, there's the raw data. And then there's the story we tell ourselves about it instantly. The Stoics called that first story an impression. They believed the space between that impression and our reaction. That's where freedom lived. Marcus trained himself in what he called the discipline of perception. It starts with a simple separation, a brutal one. Here are the facts, and here is my judgment about those facts. The plague is a fact. Calling it a catastrophe is a judgment. An enemy army at the border is a fact. Saying it's hopeless is a judgment. His private writings are full of reminders. Strip the value labels away. He writes, receive the impression without attaching to it the assumption that it's good or bad. See the thing for what it is in itself. That's the core of the dichotomy of control. We can't control the external event, but we have absolute authority over the initial story we attach to it. This isn't passive acceptance, it's active clarification. It's the work of a commander surveying a battlefield, ignoring the noise, identifying only the true obstacles and the available paths. Think of a modern leader facing a sudden market crash. The first story might be, this is a disaster that will ruin us. The disciplined perception asks, what are the factual changes? Our stock price has fallen by a certain percentage. 3 major clients have paused projects. These are problems. They are definable, limited problems. Not an all-consuming monster. By seeing them as they are, they become manageable. The energy that would have gone to fear gets channeled into solution. So here's a practice from the Emperor's Journal. Look at a situation causing you stress right now, a conflict at work, a personal worry. Write down the pure facts as if for a police report. No adjectives, no forecasts, just the observable events. Then, separately, write down the judgment you've been carrying. You'll likely find the judgment is far heavier, more paralyzing than the facts themselves. The discipline of perception is the first move in a life of strength. It clears the fog, it quiets the internal alarm. And from that clear space, a different kind of action becomes possible. The second discipline is Amor Fati. It means a love of fate. Marcus Aurelius practiced this. He was on the battlefields in Germania in the freezing cold for years. The idea is to see every event, especially the hard ones, not as some interruption, but as the essential material for your character. For him, this was a survival mechanism. He wrote that a blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of anything thrown into it. A weak fire gets choked by a log. But a strong fire, it consumes the log. It burns brighter. The obstacle becomes the fuel. This comes from a Stoic belief about the universe. They saw it as one rational, living being. A vast web where nothing is random. A falling leaf, a rising empire. Every event is a thread in a purposeful tapestry. So to resent your thread, to fight the fabric of reality itself, that's irrational. Amor Fati is aligning your will with the weaving. Take Marcus's own life. Half his reign was spent not in Rome, but in military camps along the Danube. Brutal winters, constant campaigns. He could have seen it as an exile, a punishment, but his journals show a different view. It was his duty, but also his arena. This was where philosophy met practice. The hardship of the campaign was the log thrown on his fire. It forced resilience. It demanded justice with his soldiers, patience with endless problems. The frontier wasn't stealing his life. It was forging his legacy. So for us, think of a recent difficulty, a project that failed, a plan that fell apart. Our instinct is to call it a bad break, to dwell on the frustration. Amor Fati asks a different question. It asks what strength that situation forced you to develop. Did the failed project teach humility, show a need for better planning? Did a conflict teach clearer communication? The obstacle becomes the training ground. This isn't pretending something painful is joyful. It's recognizing that our growth, our strength, is often sculpted by resistance. By loving your fate, you disarm circumstance. It loses its power to discourage you. You start to move through the world not as a victim of events, but as a collaborator with reality. And from that foundation, you can finally act. Rome had walls, but Marcus Aurelius built his strongest defense inside. He called it the Inner Citadel, his ultimate safeguard, a fortress of the mind. And no external event, no matter how violent, could ever breach it. The idea is that our true self, our reason, our moral choice, exists in sovereign territory. It can't be invaded without our consent. That's where Stoicism locates real freedom. You can lose property, you can lose health, you can lose your freedom of movement. But this inner citadel remains yours to command. For an emperor, surrounded by political maneuvering, by the noise of war, this wasn't just philosophy. It was psychological survival. He wrote that tranquility comes only from within, that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. He reminded himself that the busyness of the forum, the shouts of the army, the whispers of the court, they were all just things happening outside the walls. They could not touch the ruler inside unless he opened the gate and let them in. Think of a time you faced overwhelming pressure, a critical presentation, every eye on you. Or harsh, unfair criticism delivered in public. Your heart races, your thoughts scramble. That's the sensation, the outer world assaulting your walls. The Stoic practice is to retreat mentally to that inner command center, to observe the chaos from a place of calm detachment. And from there, you ask not how to stop the storm. You ask what your principles are, what action aligns with your character regardless of the outcome. That's how Marcus could sit in his tent, reports of enemy movements piling up, supply shortages, and still write lines about justice and patience. The battle outside was real, but the battle for his integrity was fought, and won within a space he controlled completely. So what does your inner citadel look like? Visualize it for a moment. It's the quiet core of you, the part that knows your values, that holds your sense of purpose. Now, what are the external noises that try to breach its walls? Is it the fear of other people's opinions, the constant stream of what others might think? Is it the anxiety of future events, the what-ifs that haven't even happened? Or is it the pull of old resentments, replaying past conflicts like a siege on your present peace? Marcus Aurelius would tell you none of these things have any power to enter. They clamor at the gate, but you hold the key, your reasoned choice, your decision to act with virtue. That's the unshakable garrison. This sovereignty turns every external challenge into a test of that citadel's strength, an opportunity to reinforce its walls. Not with stone, but with unwavering character. And from this position, this unassailable inner strength, a final reorientation becomes possible, a profound reorientation of life. Everyone Marcus ruled, every senator he ever debated, they all shared the same fate. That wasn't a secret. It was the central fact he chose to keep right in front of him. Memento Mori, remember you must die, to us that can sound dark, something to avoid. For a Stoic like Marcus, it was the opposite. It was a tool, a lens that brought everything into sharp focus. He didn't see it as a morbid end, but as the defining condition of being alive. His journal shows he started his days with that reflection, not to create fear, but to shed what was unimportant. He wrote that you could leave life right now, and that should determine what you do, what you say, what you think. The thought of mortality was a great leveler for him. It stripped away pretense. In the face of that final hour, what's the difference between an emperor and a slave? Both are human. Both have the same brief allotment of time. That realization didn't lead to despair. It led to a profound humility and a fierce commitment to duty. Because if time is limited, then every moment spent on vanity, on resentment, on posturing, that's a moment stolen. Stolen from what actually matters, your character, your actions, the good you can do right now. You think of a modern leader, obsessed with legacy, with how history will remember their name. That pursuit can twist decisions. It can prioritize monuments over people, symbolism over substance. Memento Mori cuts through that. It asks, if your term ended tomorrow, what would you actually do today? The answer almost never involves polishing your statue. It involves the quiet work, the work of justice, of listening, of making the one right decision in front of you. Marcus was surrounded by the trappings of ultimate power. He could have anything. The reminder of death was the anchor. It kept him from drifting into that fantasy. It constantly asked him, is this how you want to spend your last day? Arguing over a slight, indulging in luxury while your people struggle? The answer was always no. It pushed him back to the frontier, back to the hard work of governance. So here's a challenge, an echo of that morning ritual. If you carried the conscious awareness that your time was limited, what would you let go of immediately? What petty grievance have you been nursing? What vain pursuit of status consumes your energy but adds nothing to your character? The clarity from that question is startling. It doesn't ask you to build an empire. It asks you to live this day well, to act with the integrity that would matter if it were your final act. That's the ultimate reorientation. When mortality is no longer a distant shadow but a present advisor, life isn't diminished. It's intensified. Every ordinary moment becomes charged, and the path of virtue becomes not a philosophical ideal, but the only sensible way to walk through your fleeting, precious hours. Marcus Aurelius had this final mental discipline. He called it the view from above. It's an exercise of imagination. You lift your mind's eye up, high above your immediate troubles. Above your city, above the earth itself, you look down with the calm detachment of a star. You see the planet, a small blue sphere in the vast black. You see continents, oceans, the tiny patterns of human civilization, and then you zoom in slowly to your own life, to the meeting that felt so urgent. The conflict that seemed so personal. From that altitude, everything is rescaled. Your problems don't vanish, but they find their true proportion. They become small, fleeting events on a grand timeline. For an emperor, this was the antidote to self-importance, surrounded by people bowing, by a world that treated his every word as law. It was easy to believe his drama was the central story. The view from above shattered that. It was a humbling truth. He wrote in his meditations to think of the vast abyss of time, the countless generations that have come and gone. See the briefness of your own life, a mere pinpoint. He would list the names, famous rulers, brilliant minds, powerful figures from the past. Where are they now? Their palaces are dust, their debates are silent. Their triumphs and tragedies have been absorbed into the long story of history. Their anxiety, their pride, from this vantage point, it all looks the same. It looks temporary. This perspective doesn't make life meaningless. It makes our worries about status, our resentment over slights, seem strangely heavy. Why carry the weight of a mountain when you are holding a pebble? So think of a modern stressor, a career setback, a public embarrassment. Apply the view from above. First, zoom out in space. See your city from a satellite's view. See the thousands of homes, each with their own stories. Your problem is one thread in an immense tapestry. Then zoom out in time. Project yourself 1 year forward. Will this still feel like a crushing defeat? Probably not. You'll have adapted, moved on, now go further. 1 century forward, you and everyone who witnessed this will be gone. The buildings may be repurposed, the company may not exist. The sting of the moment evaporates. What remains is only what you did with your character during it. Did you act with integrity? Did you learn? Those are the only things that travel through time. In the way you influence the chain of human connection, the next time you feel overwhelmed, pause, take a mental flight to the cosmic balcony, look down, and ask a simple question. Will this matter in a month, in a year, in a century? The answer won't solve your problem, but it will return to you the clarity to solve it yourself. Without the weight of thinking it's the end of the world. Stoicism isn't about being cold or isolated. For Marcus Aurelius, it was really a philosophy of connection. The core of his thinking was this Stoic concept, Sympatheia, the idea that the universe is one living, rational thing. Everything in it is woven together. A disturbance somewhere sends a ripple through everything else, and humans, as pieces of this divine reason, we're built not for selfish competition, but for cooperation. We're social animals by nature, meant to work together like limbs of one body. So to act against the common good is to act against your own nature. It's a kind of self-mutilation. For the emperor, this wasn't abstract. It was his operating manual. His private journal is full of reminders about this duty. He writes that what doesn't benefit the hive doesn't benefit the bee. He saw himself not as a master over subjects, but as a servant, a limb of the social body with a job to do. To rule justly, to show clemency, to work for the common welfare, and that translated into action. He spent huge amounts from the treasury not on palaces, but on supporting children orphaned by plague. He changed laws to protect the vulnerable, made it easier for slaves to gain freedom, for the poor to get aid. He saw senators not as rivals but as fellow rational beings. Each with a role in the hive, even on the battlefield. His command was shaped by this. He wasn't seeking the glory of conquest. He wanted a secure frontier. A peace that would benefit both Rome and the tribes across the river. He understood that real strength was measured by the health of the whole community, not by power piled up at the top. So for us, in our own smaller spheres, we all belong to multiple hives, a family, a work team, a neighborhood, a group of friends. The Stoic question is to look at our role within them. Are we a benefactor or a burden? Does our presence make the group stronger, more resilient? Or do we drain it with complaints, with selfishness, with a refusal to cooperate? Ethical leadership here, it's not about a title. It's about seeing your inherent connection and choosing to contribute. It's the team member who shares credit, who mentors a newcomer, who focuses on the group's mission over personal recognition. It's the parent modeling patience and fairness, strengthening the family. It's the neighbor acting with kindness, reinforcing the community web. Marcus would ask you to look at your roles today. In each one, you have a choice. You can see others as obstacles to your progress or as partners in a shared project. You can hoard information and credit, or you can share them to lift the whole. This interconnected world of Sympatheia suggests that when you lift your hive, you lift yourself. Your success gets tied to the success of those around you. So the prompt is simple but deep. In your circles of influence, however large or small, how can you contribute to your hive today? What's one action that acknowledges your connection and strengthens the whole? Because a philosophy of inner strength, it finds its highest expression not in solitude but in service. The emperor's secret weapon wasn't a shield, it wasn't a spy. It was a mental drill, premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of troubles. It's a proactive exercise, the opposite of running from fear. You calmly visualize potential setbacks before they happen. You walk through the scenario in your mind, not to feed anxiety, to drain its power. The goal is to rehearse your character's response, so when life delivers the test, you've already passed it in your head. For Marcus Aurelius, facing barbarian armies, this was essential. Before a battle, he wouldn't just hope for victory. He would consider the possibility of a tactical retreat. Supply lines failing, losing good soldiers. By facing these possibilities in advance, the sting of surprise was removed. The event, if it came, was no longer a shocking catastrophe. It was a familiar scenario, one he already had a plan for. This practice turns fear into a map. The Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote about this. He said we should anticipate fortune's slings and arrows. That by thinking through potential losses beforehand, we soften the blow when they arrive. He advised his friend to spend some days each month in humble circumstances. Eating simple food, wearing rough clothes, to ask, is this what I feared? The rehearsal makes the actual performance less intimidating. Now, how is this different from worry? Worry is a chaotic, emotional spiral. It asks, what if this terrible thing happens, and then it loops, generating more fear with each cycle. Premeditatio is a structured, rational examination. It asks, if this challenging thing happens, what are my resources? What is the virtuous action I can take? Worry weakens you. Premeditatio strengthens you. Think of an upcoming difficult conversation, a performance review, a talk with a family member. Your worry might spin on the other person's anger or your own embarrassment. Try the Stoic rehearsal instead. Sit quietly, visualize walking into the room, see the other person's face. Now, mentally voice the toughest objection they could raise. The most unfair criticism. Then pause in your mind's eye, see yourself taking a breath, and respond not with emotion but with your core principle. Perhaps it's to seek understanding. I hear your concern, let's look at the facts together, or to uphold a boundary with calm respect. I understand your position, but my decision remains this for these reasons. You are not scripting the other person's lines, you are scripting your own composure, building a mental muscle memory for integrity under pressure. So pick one current anxiety about the future. A project that might fail, a health concern, a financial uncertainty. For just a few minutes, mentally walk through the so-called worst case, but with a crucial shift. Don't dwell on the feeling of disaster. Focus solely on this question: how would I respond? What is the first rational, principled action I would take? You might visualize making a new plan, seeking advice, practicing patience, or simply enduring with dignity. By doing this, you accomplish something. You separate the external event from your internal reaction. The event may or may not happen, but your reaction is now a chosen path, not a panicked reflex. You have, in a sense, already faced the monster in the arena of your mind, and you found your footing. That is how an emperor prepared for the chaos of the frontier. And it is how you can prepare for the frontiers of your own life. He owned the world, but his bed was a soldier's cot. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome. He could have slept on silk. He chose a simple bedroll, even in the capital. This wasn't poverty. It was a deliberate exercise. The Stoics called it asceticism. But not as self-denial. It was training, a training ground for the soul, to make sure your peace was never held hostage by things outside you. The goal was to weaken the chains. The chains of wanting things and of avoiding things, to prove you could be content with less, so that luxury, having it or not having it, could never truly disturb you. He wrote about this in his private journal. He told himself to look at a loaf of bread, see its beauty, to watch a ripe olive falling from its tree. He found sufficiency there. In the basic elements, a stream, a rock, the shade of a pine tree, these were the true treasures available to anyone, no title required, no treasury. He saw the pursuit of villas, slaves, fine robes. He saw it as a hollow race. He wrote how plain and simple the fashion of the happy life is. It's always ready. It's always available. You reach it not by getting more, but by wanting less. This voluntary simplicity was his armor against corruption. If you don't depend on soft living, you can't be bribed with it. If you don't fear losing comfort, you can't be intimidated by the threat of losing it. It made him a resilient leader. He could endure the hardships of campaign. Without self-pity, he could resist the temptations of court without a second thought. For us, the modern version isn't about giving everything away. It's about loosening our grip consciously. It's a digital detox, proving to yourself your worth isn't tied to notifications, to likes. It's a consumer fast. Stepping off the treadmill of wanting the next new thing, finding contentment in what you already own. It's gratitude, simple gratitude for basic things. A warm home, a meal, clean water, things we overlook in the chase for more. So here's a challenge from the Emperor's camp. Identify one comfort you quietly fear losing. It might be a level of financial security, a particular gadget, a daily luxury you feel you need. For one day, practice non-attachment to it, not by getting rid of it. By mentally rehearsing its absence, go through the day holding the thought that you would be okay, your character intact, your peace undisturbed, even if it were gone. This exercise isn't about manifesting loss. It's about discovering a deeper foundation for your happiness, an unshakable foundation. It's about building an inner citadel. So secure that the furnishings of your life, however nice, are just furnishings. They are not the pillars holding you up. When you can look at the things you desire or fear to lose and see them as indifferent to your core peace, you've mastered a form of freedom. No empire could grant it, and no circumstance can take it away. The most powerful thing an emperor had wasn't the army. It was a pause, that gap between something happening and what you do next. That's where freedom actually starts. The Stoics had a name for this. They called it the three-step chain. It starts with the impression something happens. You hear a piece of news, someone says a word that hits your senses, then comes your assent. That's your inner yes or no, your judgment of that impression. And then from that judgment comes your action. The whole space of our control is in the middle, between the impression and the assent. For most people, the first step and the third step are stuck together. An insult comes in and a retort flies out. A problem shows up and panic follows. The assent is automatic. We don't even think about it. We let that raw, initial impression decide everything. How we feel inside, what we do outside. The Stoic move is to drive a wedge into that chain, to catch the impression before it becomes a final judgment. Epictetus said it. He was a philosopher who influenced Marcus Aurelius deeply. He said between the stimulus and the response, there's a space. In that space is our power to choose. And in our response is our growth and our freedom. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this in his private journal. He wrote that we have to examine our impressions. Strip them down, see them for what they are without the story we instantly wrap around them. There's a story about him. A messenger would come to his tent with bad news. A defeat somewhere, the whole court would watch him. They expected an outburst, some visible distress, but historians say he would often just listen. His face wouldn't change and he would say, I see. Then he'd turn away, not to dismiss it, but to make that space, to separate the fact of the report from his judgment about what it meant. In that silence, he was asking questions. Is this really as bad as it feels? What here can I actually control? What's the next right thing to do without fear or pride getting in the way? By holding back his immediate emotional yes, he stopped the bad news from taking over his mind. He kept his command post clear. You can try this with the smallest things. A short email from a coworker, a child spilling a drink, someone braking hard in front of you. In that first flash of heat, that impression of annoyance, see if you can make the pause. Take one deliberate breath, count to 3 silently. In that little window, ask the Stoic question, what is this by itself? Is my first judgment that this is a personal insult or a disaster? Is that actually true? Or is it just an event now over and I can choose a useful response? That breath is your moment of imperial power. It's the difference between being a reactor, jerked around by every outside pull, and being an actor, guided by your own principles. The pause is where you take your sovereignty back. It's the quiet space where an emperor or anyone decides not to lose their soul. Marcus had a compass. It wasn't a map, it was an idea. To live in accordance with nature, that was the phrase. For the Stoics, this was the law. It meant 2 things. First, the external world. The cosmos, they saw the universe as a living, intelligent thing. A city of Zeus, Marcus called it. Everything in it followed a rational order. A planet's orbit, an oak tree growing. All part of a single logic. And second, our own nature. As humans, we have a fragment of that same divine reason. Our gift is thought, moral choice. So to live in accordance with nature is to bring your will into harmony with that larger will. Virtue is your reason agreeing with the world's reason, your actions flowing with the current, not against it. Marcus wrote about this. He'd observe how things are interwoven, how they cooperate in the composition of the world. His role as emperor wasn't to impose his own will, it was to find the rational path within the world. The path of justice, courage, moderation, wisdom. These weren't just ideas, they were the operating principles of reality. To act against them was irrational. It was to be at war with existence itself. In practice, what does that mean? It means choosing principle over impulse. Think of a conflict. The natural feeling might be to retaliate, to win, but your rational nature asks a different question. What action here upholds justice? What respects the other person's humanity? That action aligns you with a deeper law. It might require patience or your relationship with the environment. The impulse is convenience, consumption, but aligning with nature asks you to see the wider web, to consider the long-term health of the system you're in. It's the difference between hacking at the branch you're sitting on and tending to the tree. For Marcus, this was the bedrock. Should he launch a war or seek peace? The answer was in which path reflected justice, the common good. Should he spend on a triumph or use the funds for public aid? The answer was in what served the health of the whole. His true north was that calibration. Is my will in harmony with the greater reason here? So look at a course of action in your own life. A professional direction, a habit, a dispute. Does it feel in harmony with your better nature and the world around you? Does it feel like flowing with a current, contributing to health? Or does it feel like a struggle against the grain? That friction is often a signal. You might be paddling against the deeper current of your own purpose. To find your true north isn't to find a life without effort. It's to find the effort that feels like building, not breaking, like a tree growing toward the sun. It's the work of aligning with the very law that allows you to stand. The most powerful man in the world had to stop caring what people said about him. That's the final test. You build this inner fortress, you learn to accept your fate, but then, can you stay steady when crowds are cheering for you, or when they're spreading rumors about you? For Marcus Aurelius, this wasn't optional, it was survival. The Stoics had a clear line. Your character, your intentions, what you actually do, that's yours. That's what you control. Other people's opinions, though, you don't. They're like the weather, they just happen. If you build your self-worth on praise, you're building on a tide. If you collapse under blame, you've handed a stranger the key to your peace. Marcus wrote about public opinion with a kind of tired clarity. He said the applause of the crowd is just the clatter of tongues. And he reminded himself a person's worth isn't increased by what's said about them. It isn't diminished either. What you are stays what you are. That was his shield. Against the two poisons of power, flattery and slander, in his court people would have told him he was a god. Critics in the Senate would have blamed him for every problem. If he'd believed either one, his judgment would have bent. He might have started stupid wars for more glory, or made panicked decisions to quiet the critics. Instead, he could listen, take the useful information, and set the emotional noise aside. He worked for the common good, not for the roar of the crowd. You can see a modern version of this: social media. One day, a post goes viral. The likes and nice comments pour in. It feels incredible. Your sense of value inflates. The next day, you share a different idea. It's met with silence or sharp criticism. That sense of worth deflates just as fast. Your inner state becomes a ping-pong ball, battered between the opinions of strangers. The Stoic practice asks you to step off that court. It doesn't mean you ignore feedback. A useful critique about your work can be a tool. But you have to separate the useful data from the emotional charge. Did that comment point to a factual error? That's information. Did it just call you a name? That's noise, an external event to observe and let go. The same goes for praise. A compliment feels pleasant, but it doesn't fundamentally change what you did. The work was either well-intentioned and skillful or it wasn't, regardless of who noticed. So here's a reflection from the Emperor's own exercises. Think of a recent compliment that made you proud. Now think of a recent criticism that stung. Sit with each for a moment. Ask yourself, how much did my own assessment of my action change based on that external voice? Did the praise make me feel permanently more capable? Did the criticism make me feel permanently less worthy? The goal isn't to feel nothing. It's to see the mechanism clearly. To see that your stable, internal measure of your effort and your integrity is the only reliable gauge. Everything else is just the clatter of tongues echoing outside your walls. When you can stand in the center of that storm, hearing both the cheers and the boos, and feel the same steady commitment to your principles, you've mastered a freedom no title can grant, and no rumor can take away. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Marcus Aurelius wrote that in his private journal. It's not a hopeful saying, it's a strategic one. This is the Stoic art of inversion, taking a roadblock and turning it into the road itself. It's the deepest form of resilience. Not just enduring hardship, but using it as the raw material for building your character. For the Stoics, a virtue isn't a nice idea you talk about, it's a muscle. And a muscle only grows when it meets resistance. You can't practice patience when everything is on schedule. You can only practice it when there's a delay. You can't demonstrate courage without fear. You only find it when something stands in your way. The obstacle isn't blocking the path, it is the path. That's the inversion. Think of a simple example from Marcus's own life. He was constantly dealing with difficult people, senators with hidden agendas, generals with inflated egos. His natural human reaction might have been frustration, anger, but the Stoic reframe asks a different question. This person's behavior, this impediment, what virtue does it invite me to exercise? Is it an opportunity to practice justice by hearing them out fairly despite their tone? Is it a chance to practice self-control by managing my own irritation? Is it an exercise in wisdom to see the fear driving their actions? The person doesn't change. The situation doesn't magically improve, but your relationship to it transforms. It stops being a nuisance and starts being your training ground. This is how you turn poison into medicine. A modern professional faces a similar test. A key team member leaves abruptly, creating a huge resource shortage. The immediate story is one of crisis, setback. The inversion asks, what if this shortage is the way? What if it forces you to practice creativity, to find new solutions you'd never have considered with a full team? What if it trains decisiveness as you have to prioritize ruthlessly? What if it builds resilience in the rest of the team? The project's goal remains. But the path to get there has now been redefined by the very obstacle that seemed to block it. So take a moment with a current obstacle in your own view. A difficult relationship, a financial pinch, a stubborn creative block. Instead of asking how to remove it, ask this Stoic question. What virtue is this situation secretly inviting you to develop? Is that frustrating person a call to practice compassion or to practice boundary setting? Is the financial constraint a masterclass in frugality? Is the creative block a lesson in patience, in returning to the fundamentals? Name the virtue. Then for just one day, approach the obstacle with that single intention. Not to make it disappear, but to use it as your whetstone. See if the friction doesn't begin to feel less like an attack and more like the necessary grit for polishing your strength. When you can look at a barrier and see the path forward woven into its very fabric, you have mastered the art of inversion. You have learned to move through the world not by avoiding resistance but by drawing power from it. The past is memory, the future is imagination. Marcus Aurelius, he ruled in the now. All his planning on the frontier, his true arena was the immediate moment right in front of him. He wrote that each of us lives only in the present, in this brief instant. Everything else is either past and gone, or it's still uncertain. And this is more than just a philosophical observation. It's a practical command. Your reason, your will, your capacity for virtue, they only exist in the present tense. You can't act yesterday. You can't act tomorrow. You can only act now. Anxiety pulls us into an imagined future. It paints pictures of disaster that don't yet exist. Regret chains us to a past we can no longer change. Both of them are thefts. They steal the only time we ever truly possess, the present moment. Marcus disciplined himself to see this clearly. He would remind himself to do what is in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness. To be tender with people, to be vigorous with your task, and to dismiss everything else. Your mind might race ahead to the outcome of a war or dwell on some political slight from last week. His practice was to gently, firmly bring it back, not to the grand sweep of history, but to the grain of the wood on his writing table, to the sound of the rain on the tent, to the next sentence he needed to write or the next order he needed to give. This is the essence of duty, and it's the root of peace. Think of a Roman soldier on watch. His duty isn't to fret about the entire war. It's to watch his section of the wall, to notice movement in the tree line right now, to be fully present for his shift. That focused attention is his contribution to the entire campaign. Your life is no different. Your leadership, your creativity, your relationships, they're all built in the same way. Brick by brick, moment by moment, the quality of your attention in this conversation right now is what builds trust. The care you give to this single task right now is what builds excellence. The modern term might be single tasking, but it's a Stoic discipline. It means when you are reading a report, you are just reading the report, not also planning dinner and rehearsing a later meeting. When you are listening to someone, you are just listening, not also formulating your rebuttal. You give the present activity your whole self. This is how you rule your inner kingdom. By refusing to let your attention be colonized by phantoms of the past and future. So here's a simple practice, drawn straight from the Emperor's own reminders. For the next hour, choose your current activity. It might be a work project, a household chore, a walk. Commit to confining your attention to it. When your mind drifts to a worry about tomorrow or a replay of yesterday, notice it without judgment and gently return your focus to the sensory details of the now, the feel of the keyboard, the color of the sky, the words on the page. You're not trying to achieve a mystical state. You're performing a fundamental act of sovereignty. You are claiming the only field where your power is real. The present is not a waiting room for your real life to begin. It's the only ground on which you can ever stand and act and live. The lamps were lit in Rome. The emperor's day was over, the councils, the petitioners all done. In the quiet of his chamber, Marcus Aurelius turned to his final duty, not to the empire. To himself, this was the evening review, a Stoic ritual, a kind of self-examination. It wasn't about pride or shame. It was an audit, measuring the distance between his ideals and his actions, and closing that gap before the next day began. The method was systematic. He'd walk back through the day in his mind. He'd ask questions. Where did a raw impression become a rash judgment? When did a desire for comfort or a fear of displeasure steer him away from a principled action? And then, where did he act with courage, with justice? With patience? The goal was to see clearly, without drama. The philosopher Seneca described this. He wrote that we should call our minds to account each day. What bad habit did you cure? What fault did you resist? In what part are you better? He called it the medicine of the soul. It lets you digest the day's lessons and let go of its disturbances. For Marcus, this habit produced the pages we call his meditations. Those private notes are an extended evening review. They're his conversations with himself, reminders to be better tomorrow. He wasn't writing for publication. He was doing the disciplined work of course correction. This practice turns experience into wisdom. Without it, days blur into years. We repeat the same patterns, never understanding why we stumble. With it, every day becomes a classroom. Every interaction, a lesson in character. You can adopt a modern version. It takes a few quiet minutes before sleep. Ask yourself 3 simple questions. Not with guilt, with the curiosity of a scientist studying data. First, review your actions. Where today did my behavior align with my values? Where did it drift? Maybe you showed patience with a colleague's mistake, or maybe you snapped at a loved one over something trivial. Note it without a storm of self-criticism. Just observe the fact. Second, examine your judgments. What story did I tell myself today that caused unnecessary distress? Did I read a neutral email as a personal attack? Did I assume a challenge was impossible before even trying? See where your mind colored the facts and gently correct the record. Third, identify the lesson. What one thing will I do differently tomorrow? This isn't a grand resolution. It's a single, specific adjustment. Maybe it's, I will listen fully before responding. Or I will take one deliberate breath when I feel frustration rising. This 5-minute review is a tool for self-improvement. It's not about dwelling on the past. It's about preparing for the future. By calmly assessing the day, you untangle the knots of regret and anxiety. You acknowledge what was within your control, your responses. You forgive yourself for being human, and you resolve to be more aligned tomorrow. You lay the day to rest, having learned from it, so you can begin the next one with a clearer mind. A stronger will. The emperor knew that ruling the world began with ruling the self, and ruling the self required this daily, honest conversation in the lamplight. Marcus Aurelius dealt with treason, corruption, malice. He faced it constantly. Senators plotting, generals failing, citizens spreading rumors. His response in his private thoughts wasn't what you'd expect. It came from a radical Stoic idea that no one does wrong willingly. People act badly from a kind of ignorance, a mistake about what's truly good. They think wealth is happiness. They think revenge is justice. They think status is worth. To a Stoic, that error is its own punishment. The wrongdoer has a diseased soul. Your anger at them is a second error, a surrender of your own peace. He wrote to himself, when people injure you, ask what good or harm they thought would come. If you see that, you'll feel sympathy, not surprise or rage. You can't be offended by someone who is, in their own mind, stumbling in the dark. That shifts the whole frame. The offensive action isn't a personal attack on you. It's a symptom of the other person's flawed philosophy, their miscalculation about life. Your job isn't to correct their error with your anger. That just adds more error to the world. Your job is to maintain your own understanding, to act justly despite their injustice, to see their behavior like a child lashing out from confusion, or a sick person acting from delirium. The goal isn't to excuse harmful behavior, it's to disarm its power to disturb your soul so you can respond effectively. From calm principle, not reactive heat, think of a modern interaction. A coworker takes credit for your idea in a meeting. The immediate human reaction is betrayal, anger, a desire to confront and shame. The Stoic pause asks a different question. What false belief about the good is driving this person? Maybe they believe recognition is the only source of security. That being seen as the smartest person is the ultimate good. From that cramped, fearful worldview, their action makes a twisted sense. Seeing this doesn't mean you do nothing. It means your response is no longer about punishing them for hurting you. It becomes about correcting the record with firm clarity, and maybe feeling a quiet pity for someone who lives in such a small, competitive world. Your energy goes into the solution, not the emotional storm. So here's a prompt. Bring to mind someone whose actions irritate you, consistently offend you. Instead of replaying the grievance, ask one question. What mistaken belief about what is good, what is important, might be guiding them? See if you can frame their action not as a dagger aimed at you, but as a stumble made in their own fog. This doesn't make their action right. It makes your reaction yours to choose. And in that space of understanding, anger often finds it has nothing left to feed on. You preserve your inner citadel undisturbed, while the world outside continues its noisy, confused dance. Marcus Aurelius believed in seeking out discomfort during times of peace. It's a Stoic paradox, a training method for the soul. The point isn't punishment, it's to make a point, to show through what you do that your well-being isn't controlled by outside conditions. You pick a small hardship on purpose to build a kind of immunity against the fear of a bigger one. This connects to the Stoic reserve clause. You try your best toward a goal, but you hold in your mind the phrase, if nothing prevents it. You prepare yourself to accept any result, even the opposite of what you wanted. By regularly accepting little discomforts, you create a kind of muscle memory for accepting larger setbacks you didn't see coming. The background for this is old. Stoicism was shaped by the Cynics, who rejected all societal comforts. The teacher Musonius Rufus, who Marcus would have read, taught that philosophy has to train the body and the mind. He said ease makes the soul weak, and hardship, if you choose it, makes the soul strong. He saw plain food, rough clothes, a hard bed, not as deprivation, as tools to build a will that doesn't break when life hits you. For Marcus, the emperor who slept on a camp bed, this was just daily practice. His way of staying grounded, remembering that his real strength came from inside, not from silk or feasts. So for a modern life, what is it? It's choosing small, safe challenges that remind you of your own resilience. It could be taking a cold shower for the first minute, not to torture yourself, but to feel the shock and then feel your breath steady, your mind calm. It's skipping a meal sometimes, not for a diet, but to remember hunger is a temporary feeling, not an emergency. It's walking in the rain without complaining, feeling the weather on your skin and realizing it doesn't hurt you. It's picking the harder workout over the easy one, not for the physical gain, for the mental win of pushing through. These voluntary discomforts are like vaccinations. A tiny, controlled dose of strain builds your psychological antibodies. Then when a real crisis comes, money trouble, a rejection, a loss, you've already practiced meeting hardship. You've already shown yourself you can be okay, even when things aren't perfect. The comfort you look for then isn't a desperate escape, it's a real appreciation, not taken for granted anymore. So here's a simple thing to try. This week, pick one small voluntary discomfort, just one. Maybe turn off the car heater for a short drive. Eat a very plain meal, leave your phone behind for an hour on a walk. The practice isn't really the action, It's the observation. As you do it, notice your relationship to ease and hardship. See the first urge to avoid it, then see the moment you realize you're fine, you're still you. Your peace wasn't in the thermostat or the seasoned food. It was inside the whole time. That's the discovery, and that's the unshakable foundation you build, one small, chosen discomfort at a time. Marcus kept a list. 2 columns, that was his manual, not a map of the empire, but a map of the mind. One side was things he could control, the other side was everything else. That's the Stoic split, the foundation. His calm wasn't just his temperament. It came from training his focus on that first column and accepting the second with a steady, quiet equanimity. All the other practices, the view from above, preparing for trouble, the evening review, they all get their power from this one distinction. Epictetus, who Marcus studied, said it right at the start of his handbook. He wrote, "Some things are up to us and some things are not up to us. Our opinions, our impulses, our desires, our aversions, whatever is our own doing, that's up to us. Our body, our property, our reputation, our public office, whatever is not our own doing, that's not up to us. That's the whole system. Freedom comes from putting yourself completely into the first category and letting go of the second." For an emperor, this was the daily test. A drought hits a province. The drought itself, the weather, that goes in the second column, not up to him, but his judgment about it, his decision to send grain, his order to open the stores, those actions from his reason and will, those go in the first. He could waste his spirit raging at the clouds, or he could put his energy into the logistics. One path leads to frantic exhaustion. The other leads to action that's effective and principled. This is the practical engine. It turns chaotic circumstance into orderly work. You can use this map for modern stress. Think of traffic, the red lights, the other drivers, the construction delay, all in the column of things not up to you. Your frustration about it, your choice to listen to something or to breathe, your decision to call if you'll be late, that's in your column. The stress multiplies when we demand control over the first list. It dissolves when we put our effort into the second, or other people's opinions, their thoughts, their comments, their judgments, that's their column. Not your doing, your reaction to those opinions, your choice to look for useful feedback or to dismiss it as noise, your commitment to act by your own values anyway, that's your territory. When you stop trying to manage the unmanageable list, you get back a huge amount of energy you can use to actually live. So here's a prompt, an echo of the emperor's method. Take a current worry, a conflict at work, a health concern, a money problem. Now physically draw 2 columns on paper. Label one, my part, what is up to me. Label the other, not my part, what is not up to me. Start sorting the pieces of your worry. The market crashing, not your part. Your spending habits, your research. Your part, a family member's mood, not your part. Your compassion, your boundaries, your part. The physical act of separating is powerful. It visually lifts the weight of the world off your shoulders and leaves just your own load. You see clearly where your power actually is and where you've been wasting strength trying to command the wind. This map doesn't make the journey easy, but it means you'll never be lost. What makes a simple duty feel sacred? For Marcus, it was purpose, not the big historical kind of purpose, but the immediate purpose behind the smallest gesture. That's the Stoic idea of telos, the end goal. The ultimate telos is a life of virtue and reason, but you only get there through the quality of 1,000 small actions in a day. It's not what you do, it's why you do it, how you do it, an action from vanity, from habit, from resentment, that's empty. The same action done from duty, from service, from love for the people around you, that becomes a brick in the temple of your character. Marcus wrote about this constantly. He told himself to approach each task as a Roman, with dignity, with seriousness, with simplicity, with love for the people he shared the world with. He said even the most routine duty, like hearing a petition, was a chance to exercise justice, to listen with patience, to act with humanity. The action itself was administrative. The purpose behind it made it philosophy in motion. Take preparing a meal. You can do it on autopilot, annoyed by the chore, rushing to finish. Your mind is on other problems, on entertainment. The food is just fuel. Now do that same task with intention, with the purpose of nourishing yourself or someone you care for, with attention to the colors of the vegetables, the sound of the sizzle, the act of creating something wholesome. The physical actions are identical, but the inner experience is worlds apart. The energy you bring to it is different. One depletes you, the other, done with purpose, can restore you. It connects you to the present, to a sense of service. Marcus saw this as training. You're training your mind to put meaning into the mundane. So when a true test comes, your default isn't autopilot. It's conscious, virtuous choice. So here's something to try. Tomorrow, pick one routine task you do every day: making your bed, commuting to work, writing a report. Washing dishes. Before you begin, pause for 3 seconds. Set a simple intention, not for the outcome, for the spirit of the action. Your intention might be to do it with full attention, or as an act of care for your future self, or to perform it with the dignity of a craftsperson. Then do the task holding that purpose lightly in mind. Notice what shifts. Does the time feel different? Does your energy change? The task itself hasn't changed, but your relationship to it has. You're not just going through the motions. You're practicing the art of purposeful action. You are, in a small way, ruling your own moment, like an emperor who knows that every act, no matter how small, is a vote for the kind of soul you're building. Marcus found his peace in what was always changing, not in what was eternal. The Stoics saw the universe as a living fire, constantly consuming itself, constantly recreating itself. Nothing solid ever really remained. Mountains wore down to sand, oceans moved their shores, great cities, given enough time, would be buried, they'd be forgotten. And this wasn't a reason for despair, it was the source of peace. If everything is in a state of flow, then your tightest grip is an illusion. Your deepest worry is about a shape that's already shifting. Marcus wrote about this with a serene detachment. He pictured time as a violent river. He wrote that all that exists is the coming together and the falling apart of things. Everything you see will soon be altered. It will soon be gone. The people in your life, the objects you treasure, your own body, they're all on loan from nature. Destined to be returned, destined to be remade, and that perspective changes loss. It turns it from a personal tragedy into a natural return. Think of a forest. You walk through and see a magnificent, ancient oak. It feels permanent, like a landmark, but the Stoic sees the entire cycle. That oak was once an acorn. One day it will be soil feeding new acorns. Its form is temporary. Its substance is eternal, just rearranging. Your prized possession, maybe a family heirloom, is like that oak. It has a history. It will have a future beyond you. It may be passed down. It may be lost. It may simply wear away. Its current form in your hands is a brief snapshot in a much longer story. And clinging to that snapshot as if it could last forever, that's what creates the anxiety of loss. Seeing it as part of the flow, that's what brings release. You can apply this to a grudge you're holding. That painful event is like a rock thrown into the river of time. The splash is over. The rock has settled to the bottom. The water has flowed on, but you keep standing on the bank, staring at the spot where the splash happened, refusing to let the river carry the memory away. The Stoic practice is to acknowledge the splash and then to turn your gaze to the moving water, to see that both you and the person involved are different now. The configuration of that moment is gone. Clinging to it is like trying to hold the exact pattern of ripples from last week. It's an impossible fight. A fight against the nature of things. So there's a simple exercise from this, a profound one. find a cherished object in your home, or bring to mind a situation you're deeply attached to. A relationship, a job, a personal achievement. Hold the object or hold the thought, and then consciously say to yourself, this too will change form. Not as a threat, as a simple fact of physics. The atoms will rearrange, the circumstances will evolve. This acknowledgement doesn't diminish the love or the value. It just places it within the grand, beautiful, relentless dance of the universe. It asks you to appreciate the snapshot while understanding it is a snapshot. This is the comfort of impermanence. It means no bad moment is final, and it means every good moment is a gift to be received fully with open hands, not clenched fists. When you stop demanding that the river stop flowing, you can finally learn to float. Your job isn't to pick the play, it's to act the part you've been given and to act it well. That's the Stoic view of fate. It's not about powerlessness. It's not a script you can't change. It's a role assigned by the nature of things. Your virtue isn't in wishing for a different part. It's in playing this one with skill, with integrity. Marcus Aurelius saw his emperorship that way. He didn't win it. He was born into a position. Then he was adopted by the previous emperor. He could have seen it as a burden, a cage, but his writings show he saw it as his post, his station, given by the logos, the rational order of the universe. His duty was to stand at that post, to do its work with justice, with patience, with wisdom. Whether the role felt glorious or grim didn't matter. The excellence was in the performance. The Stoics loved the theater analogy. Epictetus said it plainly. He was the former slave who taught the philosophy Marcus followed. Remember, he said, you are an actor in a play. The playwright decides the character. If he wants you to play a beggar, act that part with grace, with power. If your role is a cripple or a ruler or a common citizen, your task is to play it well. Choosing it belongs to someone else. Marcus echoed this in his private journal. He wrote that life is like a play. It doesn't matter how long the play is. What matters is how good the acting is. You could exit after one act, or you could stay until the final curtain. Your only concern is to make your act, however long or short, a performance of quality. This reframes everything: your circumstances, your health, your family background, your profession, even the historical era you're born into. These aren't a personal reward or punishment. They're the set, the costume, the lines you've been given, the raw material. Your character is revealed in what you build with that material. Think of two people in the same difficult job. One sees it as a prison, a sentence to be endured with resentment. They do the minimum, they complain. They see every challenge as proof of their bad luck. The other, holding the Stoic view, sees it as their current post, their assigned role for this season of life. They ask, how can I perform this duty with diligence? How can I interact with my colleagues with fairness? How can I solve these problems with creativity? The job itself hasn't changed, but the second person is practicing virtue within it. They're playing their part well. They find a dignity and purpose the first person completely misses because they're too busy arguing with the playwright. So here's a question drawn from that ancient stage. What is the core role you're currently cast in? Not the job title, the fundamental duty. Is it the role of a parent guiding a young life? Is it the role of a learner mastering a new skill? Is it the role of a supporter caring for someone in need? Or a creator bringing order or beauty into your corner of the world? Now, with that role in mind, ask a second question. Are you resisting the very fact of this part? Wishing for a different script, or are you striving to play it right here, right now, with all the integrity and grace you can muster? Your answer doesn't change your circumstances, but it changes everything about how you move through them. It decides whether you spend your energy fighting the stage or learning to command it. The iron will and the helping hand, they were the same philosophy. That part of Stoicism gets lost. a character that can't be shaken by outside events. That's the same character that can be gentle, that can choose kindness. Not as a weakness, but as the rational choice. Marcus Aurelius kept reminding himself of this. He wrote that to be angry at someone is to forget they're human like you, that they are acting from their own flawed understanding. He told himself to be tolerant, to be teachable, to correct others kindly, like guiding someone who's lost. Not with a shout, with a quiet word. This wasn't sentiment, it was logic. We're social creatures. We're bound in a web of mutual need. To harm that web through cruelty, through indifference, that's acting against our own nature. It's irrational. It weakens the whole system we depend on. So true strength isn't a fortress with the bridge up. It's a strong gate that opens easily. Because the guardian inside knows nothing can threaten his peace. You see a modern leader who commands respect not through fear, but through fairness. Through genuine concern for their team. Their strength lets them listen patiently to a junior employee's idea, to give feedback without belittling, to forgive an honest mistake and focus on the lesson. That's Stoic kindness, tough kindness. It's setting a firm boundary with a loved one, not from resentment, but from love, for a healthier relationship. It's the manager who delivers difficult news about a project with clarity and compassion, focusing on the path forward, not the blame. This kindness needs immense inner security. You have to be sure of your own footing, so sure you can extend a hand without fear of being pulled over. So there's a practice from the emperor's own notes. Today, perform one act of kindness that needs no recognition. It doesn't have to be grand, a genuine compliment to a stranger, letting someone merge in traffic with a wave. Listening fully to someone without waiting for your turn to speak, or a thoughtful message to someone who wouldn't expect it. The key is to do it quietly for its own sake. And then observe not the effect on them, the subtle effect on your own state. Does a small, quiet warmth settle in your chest? Does the world feel a fraction more cooperative, more human? That feeling isn't just nice, it's evidence. Evidence you're acting according to your nature. As a social, rational being, you're strengthening the web you're a part of. And in doing that, you're building a strength, unshakable and utterly gentle. The emperor fought for victory, but he planned for the unexpected. His strategy had a hidden clause. A mental safeguard. The Stoics called it the reserve clause. In Latin, fatum voluntum, fate permitting. It meant you give absolute, focused effort, and you accept any result completely. You control your actions. You don't control the world's response. That's the art of detached engagement. Fight every battle as if victory depends on you. But plan as if the gods decide the final outcome. This isn't passivity. It's not a lack of ambition. It's the highest form of strategic clarity. It separates your worth from your win, your character from your circumstances. The philosopher Seneca explained it. He wrote that we should set our course with diligence, but hold our goal with a light hand. A sailor can control the trimming of the sails, the strength of his grip on the rudder. He can't control the wind, or the waves, or the hidden reef. His virtue is in his skilled sailing, not in commanding the sea itself. To rage against a storm wastes the energy you need to steer. The reserve clause is that acceptance, made before you even leave port. I will sail my ship with all my skill, fate permitting. Apply this to a modern pursuit, a crucial job interview. The Stoic approach isn't a casual shrug. It's the opposite. You prepare meticulously. You research the company. You practice your answers. You plan your journey to arrive early. You give the moment your full attention. You execute with calm confidence, and then you release. You've done your part. The decision of the hiring committee, another candidate with a unique skill. An internal budget shift you couldn't have known about. These are the winds and the waves. They belong to the sea, not to you. Your peace doesn't hinge on their direction. Or a creative project launch. You pour your heart into the work, you refine it, you share it with care, you do everything within your sphere, then you let it go into the world. Its reception, its commercial success, the critics' opinions, these are external events. Your fulfillment came from the integrity of the creation itself. From having sailed your ship well, the reserve clause protects you from the whiplash of fortune. Success doesn't inflate you because you know it was never yours alone to claim. And failure doesn't crush you because your core value was in the effort, not the trophy. So try this mental shift with an upcoming endeavor, a fitness goal. A difficult conversation, a bid for a promotion. State your intention to yourself, but add those two quiet words at the end. I will run this race to the best of my ability, fate permitting. I will present this proposal with clarity and passion, fate permitting. Feel the internal space those words create. They don't diminish your drive. They place a buffer between your effort and your ego. They acknowledge a humbling truth. We are co-authors of our lives, not sole authors. Our job is to write our lines with excellence. The final draft belongs to a story much larger than our own. Marcus Aurelius didn't draw his concern at the borders of Rome. His concern went further, to a frontier in the mind. The Stoics had a name for this, Cosmopolitanism. The idea that every person, because they share that spark of reason, is a citizen of one city, a universal city. This wasn't just a vague feeling, it was a conviction. And it shaped his actual policy. In a time of rigid hierarchy, deep tribal lines, the emperor operated from a different place. He saw a slave, not as property, but as a person. A person whose rational nature was equal to his own. He saw a warrior across the Danube, not a subhuman, but a participant in that same universal reason. Even if his actions were misguided, this belief changed laws, made it easier for slaves to earn freedom. It changed how he treated captives, a clemency that puzzled his generals. He wrote it down in his meditations. What injures the hive injures the bee. To harm another person, to treat them with cruelty, was an act of self-harm. Because it damaged the single community they both belonged to, the rational community, he kept reminding himself, angry people, misguided people, they are still kin. We are made for cooperation, like feet, like hands. This was his answer to the tribalism of his age, the easy split, Roman and other, civilized and savage. Us and them, his philosophy asked him to look deeper, to the shared capacity for reason, beneath language, custom, status. You can see a shadow of this now. In our own polarized world, we sort people so quickly into political tribes, social camps. We see the label and stop seeing the person. The Stoic practice is an exercise. When you meet someone whose views seem alien, offensive, pause. Before reacting to the opinion, look for the human holding it. Ask, what shared rationality might be buried here? What fear, what hope, what desire for good, even if it's mistaken, might be driving this other citizen? This isn't about agreement. It's about recognizing their membership. In the same universal city, seeing their flawed reasoning not as a reason for hatred but as a symptom. The same human condition you're in. It's finding the we before you get lost in us versus them. So here's a quiet challenge from that old idea. Bring to mind one person, one group you instinctively otherize, someone you dismiss or resent. For a moment, set aside their most objectionable opinion. Try to see them through Marcus's lens as a fellow citizen of the world, a rational being, however lost they seem, flawed, yes, capable of error, certainly. But part of the same community, under the same sky, bound by the same capacity for reason. Does that shift, even slightly, change the quality of your thought? It doesn't ask you to drop your principles. It asks you to hold them with a wider compassion, a more steadfast one. Before asking for more, the emperor would list what he'd already been given. That was his discipline, not a feeling but an audit, a daily one. It came from the Stoic idea of a providential world. If the universe is rational and connected, then everything that reaches you is part of that web. The easy things and the hard ones, they all have a role, a purpose. Even hardship is a kind of gift. It's the material you use to build patience or courage. Or resilience. To resent it is to refuse the tools you've been given for your own construction. Marcus Aurelius began his days like this. In the first part of his meditations, he wrote a long list of thanks. He thanked the gods for his health, for his family, but he went further. He thanked specific people, his grandfather for teaching him good character, his father for modesty, his mother for her piety and generosity. He thanked his brother for his love. He named his tutors, thanking them for the virtues they instilled. He thanked the philosopher Rusticus for showing him his character needed correction. He thanked his adoptive father, Emperor Antoninus Pius, for modeling a ruler who put the state's welfare above his own comfort. This wasn't nostalgia. It was an active recognition of the web that held him up. He saw himself not as self-made, but as a mosaic, each piece placed by someone else. His strength, his wisdom, his position, all were debts, and to acknowledge those debts was the first step toward using those gifts well. This practice turns entitlement into humility. When you start the day cataloging what you've been given, you face new challenges from a place of resource, not lack. You're not starting from zero, you're starting from a foundation others built. So how do you practice it? It's more than listing obvious blessings. It's about finding the teacher in the trouble. The next time you're in a frustrating delay, instead of simmering, ask what it's teaching you. Is it a lesson in patience? Is it forcing you to plan better? That difficult person, what virtue are they inviting you to cultivate? Maybe boundaries. Or compassionate listening. Even ordinary objects become subjects for gratitude. The clean water from your tap, the roof that doesn't leak, the device that connects you to knowledge. These aren't accidents. They're the result of centuries of human ingenuity and labor and cooperation. To use them without thanks is to live in forgetfulness. So tonight, try the audit. Write down 3 things you're genuinely grateful for. Here's the Stoic twist. Let one of them be something that felt like a nuisance this week. Find the hidden gift in it, the lesson it carried, the strength it asked you to find. This simple act rewires your perception. It moves you from being a passive consumer of your circumstances to an active student of your life. It reminds you that you're supported, even when you feel alone. And from that place of acknowledged abundance, your next request to the universe won't be a desperate plea. It will be a clearer question. Marcus had all his advisors around him, the senior senator, the head general, but his most trusted counselor wasn't any of them. It was something he felt inside, a quiet presence. The Stoics had a name for it, the Daimon, your inner divinity, a piece of the universal reason, the logos planted in you. That's where your conscience comes from, that quiet, clear sense of what's right, separate from what's easy or what's popular. For Marcus, living virtuously meant one thing: listening to that guide and obeying its quiet command. He wrote to himself as if speaking to this inner companion. He'd address his own soul. He reminded himself that this inner citadel, this guiding spark, stays untouched by the chaos outside. It can't be soiled by pleasure or pain. It can't be bullied by opinion. It's your sovereign territory, your truest advisor. This idea turns morality. It's not a set of rules, it's an internal navigation system. You don't need a scroll of laws to know cheating is wrong. Your daemon flinches at the thought. You don't need public approval to know a kindness is right. Your inner guide affirms it, a quiet warmth. The noise of the world, the shouts of ambition, the whispers of fear, that's static on the frequency. Your job is to tune it out, to listen for the clear signal. Think of a time you faced a moral choice. Maybe you were tempted to cut a corner, to shade the truth for a small advantage. Before you acted, you probably felt a subtle resistance, a tightening in your chest maybe. That's your daemon. It's not an emotion, it's a judgment. A quiet, rational no from the part of you aligned with universal reason. To ignore it is to betray your own nature. To heed it is to act with integrity. Regardless of who's watching, so how do you hear it more clearly? The practice is quiet reflection. Before a big decision, create a space of silence. Step away from the noise, then ask a simple question. What does my inner guide suggest here? Free from fear or desire. Strip away the worry about outcomes. Strip away the craving for approval. Listen for the answer, not a frantic thought, a settled knowing. It might point toward the harder path, the path of honesty when a lie is convenient. The path of courage when silence is safer, but following it leads to one thing, a deeper alignment with who you truly are. Marcus believed this guide was your connection to the cosmos itself. To disobey it was to be at odds with the rational order of everything. So here's a reflective prompt from his own habit. Find 5 minutes of quiet today. Sit comfortably, bring to mind a current dilemma, a choice you're wrestling with. Don't try to think your way through it. Instead, listen. Listen past the chatter of pros and cons. Past the anxiety about results, listen for the calm, underlying sense of what's right. What action, in its essence, feels aligned with your deepest principles? The first answer that arises in the stillness before your fears argue with it, that's often the whisper of your daemon, your most trusted counselor. It's been with you all along. The column of Marcus Aurelius is still there in Rome, but he thought his real monument was something you couldn't see. It wasn't made of stone. It was in the character of the people he influenced. And it was in the private record of his own soul. That's the Stoic idea of legacy. What lasts isn't the statue, it's the strength, not the fame, but the mark of virtue you leave on other lives. We get legacy mixed up with reputation. Reputation is the story people tell about you later. It gets simplified, sometimes it gets distorted, but legacy to a Stoic is what you actually were. The quality of your character, the just things you did, the patience you had, the courage you lived, those things don't just disappear, they ripple out. They become part of the moral air that other people breathe. Marcus wrote about how fast material things fade. He said the memorials of the past are forgotten quickly. The names of great benefactors, the temple builders, the war heroes, they all sink into oblivion. What remains, he said, is the work of a life lived according to nature. That work is its own reward, and it's its own lasting echo. Now think about the modern push to build a legacy, chasing a title to be remembered by, curating a social media profile like it's a digital monument, accumulating achievements to cement a name. The Stoic question cuts through all that. It asks, if you took away all those external markers, the job, the likes, the possessions, what would be left of your contribution? The answer is always in character, in the integrity you brought to the work, not just the work itself, in the kindness you offered when nobody was watching, in the truth you told when a lie was easier. Those are the seeds you plant. They grow in other people. Your moment of patience might inspire someone else to be patient with their child. Your act of courage might give a friend strength to face a fear. Your commitment to justice might quietly raise the standard for everyone around you. That's how virtue becomes a chain, a silent inheritance passed not through wills but through example. So apply this to your own sphere. In your career, instead of just focusing on the promotion or the impressive project, ask what character you're showing in the process. Are you building a legacy of collaboration or competition, of mentorship or rivalry? On social media, instead of crafting a perfect image, think about the authentic virtue you can share. Not a performative act of charity, but a real moment of encouragement to someone struggling in a comment. The legacy isn't in the post, it's in the human connection it creates. That leads to a quiet question. If you are remembered only for the strength of your character, what single trait would you want that to be? Unwavering integrity, profound compassion, unshakable resilience. Choose one, then make that abstract trait concrete for today. How can you embody it in a real, small action before sunset? If you chose compassion, maybe it's truly listening to someone without interrupting. If integrity, it might be correcting a small error you've let slide. If resilience, it could be facing a mundane task you've been avoiding with focus. That single, conscious act is you building your true monument, not with marble but with moment. It's a brick laid in the invisible column that will outlast any stone, a legacy that doesn't stand in a city square but lives in the world you help shape. One choice at a time. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, but the real empire was his own mind. He had this disciplined perception separating fact from judgment. And then there was Amor Fati, that purposeful action, turning obstacles into fuel, and an unshakable will anchored in an inner citadel. Sovereignty begins within. His governance of Rome was just the external expression of an internal philosophy. Power doesn't have to corrupt the soul if the soul is first fortified by principle. He left a final thought. He wrote it in his meditations. The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. His world was constant flux, war, plague, political intrigue. Yet his life was shaped by the steadfast quality of his character. So the takeaway isn't about ancient thrones. It's about modern pressure. Stoicism is a practical toolkit for maintaining your essence in any storm. Whether you lead a nation or a team or just the complex demands of your own daily life, it's a system for building inner sovereignty. So no external title can inflate you, and no external crisis can break you. So a question: which of these practices will you take into your own empire, your life, starting tomorrow? The disciplined pause, the loving of fate, the evening review, the view from above. Choose one, begin there.